Oh wait, should we like go in and go and cover the screen and then come back out and the lights are dimmed?
Yeah, let's do it. Hey guys, Cadence and Mary here once again. My video is late, unfortunately, and that is because my dad and my brother's birthday was Monday, the 1st of July. So we're having a birthday party cookout thing for them this Saturday, and we had to lay some mulch down and power wash the house, and we had to do a lot of stuff like around the house, and we had to clean today and stuff, so I just haven't had the time to video yet. But we're here and we're doing something spooky. So I've watched a lot of reviews on reddit.com of different videos and stuff like that, and I went on there earlier just to see what they had on there, and I did read a story and I liked it a lot. The rest of this video, Mary and I are going to be reacting the same time that you guys do, so we're going to read these for the first time on camera. The first one I have read, Mary has not, but that is what we're going to start out today's videos with. They're kind of long, so bear with me. We'll probably do 2 to 3 of them, and if you guys like the reviews, we'll probably do a part 2 coming out in a couple weeks. The title of this first one is called "I've been having nightmares about killing people for years. Today I found out they weren't dreams, and I know who's going to die next."
So that's the title?
Yes,
that's a really
that
long,
is a long
title. That sums it up. That's the title.
When I publicly read, sometimes I stumble over my words, so if I mispronounce something, I apologize, but we're gonna give it a shot. Also, your phone's cracked, so
yeah, it's really...
I'm gonna zoom in. Okay, it starts. Let me start off by saying this is not a confession. To the best of my knowledge, I did not kill anyone, and if I did, I certainly didn't mean to. There we go. It all started when I was 18. One morning I woke up in a cold sweat, hyperventilating. I had just killed someone. He was bothering me, so I went into the bathroom at my school and he followed me in. I checked to make sure there was no one else in there, and then I savagely beat him to death. First I pummeled him with my fist, and when he fell defenselessly to the ground, I kicked him in the head and chest until he stopped moving. As I got home, I realized that I was probably going to spend the rest of my life in prison, and started to panic.
Is there anything you want to talk about, Sweetie?
Waking up was the most glorious feeling I had graduated a year ago and hadn't seen him since then. It was all a dream, I assured myself. Similar dreams occurred sporadically over the next few years. Once I pushed a girl in front of a bus. No one saw me because it was at night and it was raining cats and dogs. Another time I switched out of junkies drugs with something far more dangerous. It was dismissed as an accident overdose. I began to dismiss these nightmares as somewhat a nuisance, as they're annoying and have to go away, but otherwise harmless. This perception came crashing down yesterday when I met up with Gavin, an old high school buddy of mine. I hadn't seen him since freshman year, and I had happened to be back in town for a bit, so we decided to grab lunch and catch up. As we were talking about our old classmates, I brought up Nick. "Whatever happened to him?" I asked. "He was always a weirdo. Does he even have a job, or is he just chilling in his mom's basement?" "Oh, haven't you heard?" Nick's dead. He snuck back into our old school one night, and they found his body beaten up, pulped in the washroom the next morning. The cops found it bloody footprints, but didn't lead anywhere. That was part 1 of the story. Part 2. It was a warm June afternoon and I could have sworn the temperature dropped 50 degrees. A terrible thought occurred to me. Did I ask? What about Veronica? Is she still with Billy? Man, you gotta come back more often. You're missing all the good stuff. Veronica is dead too. She broke up with Billy and the very night someone shoved her into the road. There's no evidence that Billy did it, but we all know it was him. So yeah, in case you're wondering about Billy, he's in the pen. I stood up, got the bill, and I left. I told Gavin that I wasn't feeling well and I needed some time to go home and rest. I wasn't exactly lying. I really was going to throw up and I didn't need to ask about the others. I already knew. Hey man, if you're feeling better later, me and some of the guys used to play soccer with are going to the Starducks Club at 10. You can come with us too. We're meeting at my place at 8. I nodded and tried to say something, but all that came out was a hoarse grunt. I hurried home. Stopped once to only throw up. My mind was racing a million miles an hour. What do I do? How do I know all of this? Did I do this? As I calmed down a bit, I remembered that I used to sleepwalk as a kid. My parents would often complain about me having to chase down as I left the house in the middle of the night and how embarrassed they were to tell people the baby monitor they were buying for their 10-year-old son. But it didn't make sense. I stopped sleepwalking years ago. I did some research and saw that sleepwalking is almost never violent, but another passage caught my eye. Sleepwalkers have no inhibition. The people who died I never really liked, and I used to joke to my closest friends that if there were no consequences, I would like to kill them. But that was when I was an antsy teenager going through somewhat of a psychopathic phase. It was unbelievable.
Never a phase.
It was unbelievable that I would ever act on it. I took a breath and came up with a plan. Tomorrow morning I'll go see a doctor, and if necessary, I will turn myself into the police for questioning. See if I could help them find concrete evidence if I was involved in any of these murders. In the meantime, I would do my best and get a good night's sleep. It took a few beers, but eventually I got there.
Do you think he's psychic?
Part 3. We'll find out. I'm standing outside Stardust. It's 11, so Gavin and the others are already there. I showed my ID to the bouncer and went inside. I pulled the knife from under my belt that I got 20 minutes earlier at the supermarket. Used self-checkout, bought it along a bag of spinach and some ground beef. Paid with cash, burned the receipt. No one would know who bought the knife. There will be no fingerprints, and they'll never be able to figure out who stabbed poor Gavin on the crowded, boozy dance floor. I see him at the edge of the dance floor, no one standing next to him. Perfect. I walk up, gloves on, left hand over his mouth, right hand plunging knife into his lower bag. Twist, pull, careful not to get any blood on the top of the knife. Sneak out, done, poor Gavin. He was my friend, but he knew too much. I open my eyes. It's pitch black and I'm laying in bed. This time I know better. I run down to the kitchen. The microwave says it's 4:30 a.m. I throw open the fridge door. Everything looked the same except for 3 beers I had earlier, and a bag of spinach with some ground beef. Oh God, what have I done? And that's the end.
Oh, really?
He was killing people in his sleep.
Oh, man. Sounds like he has like a...
I also
like
read
some sci-fi stuff that he's got like
I read another one earlier, and it was about like a girl who actually did a YouTube review. I don't know if this one was real or not. I'm assuming it was probably fake, but I have something in my eyeball.
Was it scary?
It was not really scary. It was just kind of creepy. Like if it happened to you, you'd probably like crap your pants. But this girl basically said that she had done a YouTube review on these and was asking people to send her their scary stories, and this person sent her a link that didn't work, and then they replied that they would just send it to her email, which she had never gave out to anyone. And after getting the email, when she opened it up, it just said in all like letters just all over the screen, it said, "What have you done to my skin?" And she woke up in the middle of the night with rashes and blisters all over her body, and she kept hearing the voices saying, "What have you done to my skin?" And she opened her laptop and the words were on her screen. And then eventually then after she had opened her laptop, like it cleared off the screen and all the skin stuff went away, and she blocked the number and everything, and then it just stopped.
You still chose to make a review video?
I'm pretty sure they're fake.
A witch. It was a witch.
So that was the only one that I had read. Other than this, that's the only one that I'm reading that I've read.
Let me check mine.
Also, working outside all week, I got super sunburnt. Let me show you. It's not really bad anymore, but I will insert pictures like right here of what it looked like before. Speaking of which, will you rub lotion on my back? Oh wow, that's weird. We're not gonna read that one. I'm a therapist and my patient is intentionally infecting strangers with HIV. Okay, the next one that we're gonna do is I worked security at a hospital for 15 years. This is what finally made me quit. I worked security there for a long time. Between the long hours and the close co-workers, it was like a second home to me. I had been there longer than anyone else, so newbies anyways came to me for advice. For the most part, I liked the job. We lived in a small area, so chaotic events were rare. I worked in the basement, just the morgue and some storage closets, so my shifts were always quiet and peaceful. It was particularly a slow night when we had 2 bodies in the storage. There was a mother and a daughter, fresh from a murder-suicide. According to the report, it was a pretty horrific scene. The mother shot her daughter point blank in the chest and then turned the gun on herself. The poor girl was only 8 years old. It was almost abnormal for the town. We lived in such a small area that the only crimes that we really had were drug related. I was fulfilling paperwork at my desk when I heard a tapping noise coming from down the hall. This piqued my interest because everyone working on the floor had gone home today. I got up to investigate. The sound grew louder as I approached the morgue. I went to the morgue and heard a sound coming from the drawer number 6. I reached an attached clipboard to find out who or what was in there, and it was the daughter's body. I placed the clipboard back in place and the tapping stopped abruptly. Curiously, I placed my ear to the drawer to see what it was and what I could hear. That's when the power went out. The drawer began shaking violently. Metal roared, clanging together as I jumped back, fumbled around for the flashlight. I shined my light on the drawer as it shook and the clipboard fell off. It began to shake open and then it stopped out of nowhere. I struggled for air as I shined my light around to make sure no one was there messing with me. I was terrified. I looked back at the drawer and there stood a little girl in a white dress. I jumped and tried my best to gain my composure. "What are you doing down here? Where are your parents?" I asked gently. The girl didn't move. She stood in place, staring blankly past me. "Come with me. We'll go upstairs and try to figure this out, okay?" Gently, I reached down to grab her hand, and she let out a scream. I recoiled, startled. I can't say that word. I don't know why I can't say that word. I just can't say that word. "Mommy, please," she pled, staring at the wall behind me. There were tears in her eyes. I heard a gunshot go off, and blood began pouring from her chest. Her white dress began turning a crime scene red as she collapsed to the floor. No, I cried as I dropped to my knees and checked for a pulse. I felt nothing. My hands were covered in blood. I tried to radio for help, but all I could hear was the other end of the feeding static. I sobbed as her blood spilled out on the floor. I turned around with my hands on my head, trying to catch my breath as thinking for a plan, and she was gone. No sign that she was ever there. My hands were clean now. Wanting to comfort myself and think rationally of the situation, I tried to brush it off as some sort of mental breakdown. I was just having a few days. I took a few days off work thinking that it would all be fine. I went back to the office and tried to calm down, but all I could think of was a little girl, the fear in her eyes as she collapsed. I decided I needed a cigarette to calm my nerves. The power was still out, so trying to use the elevator was useless. I tried to open the back door in the stairwell, and to my horror, it was locked. I was stuck down there, and full realization that all the events leading up to this moment set in, I began to panic. I couldn't catch my breath. It was all in that moment that I heard a door open and close, a strange wheezing, gurgling sound that I'd never heard before. I felt a chill down my spine as I was hit with an immense amount of dread. My blood turned ice when I realized that the sound was coming from a chemical storage closet. I slowly crept towards the closet as the sense of dread grew larger. I opened the door and a naked woman was facing the wall. "Ma'am, you can't be in here," I said. "Ma'am, judging by your wheezing, you could use some medical assistance. Let me take you upstairs and we can get you help." I placed my hand on her shoulder and she turned around. She had a hole in the size of a baseball blown straight through her face. "Holy crap," I screamed as I turned to run. She was chasing me. I ran back to the office and slammed and locked the door behind me. She began pounding the door, and I used a weight to shut it off. "If you're real God, I need you to help me here." I begged. The pounding grew louder. I managed to move a filing cabinet in front of the door and hold up the corner of the room. The pounding grew faster and louder. The cabinet fell over and the pounding stopped. I let out a breath that I had been holding as I slid down the wall, wondering if I was going to die down there. I need to figure this out. I gathered enough courage to stand up and head back to the morgue. I was terrified, but I knew I had to do something if I wanted to get out of here. The faceless woman was dragging her body behind me, leaving a bloody trail down the hallway. I had almost a feeling of calmness, like she wasn't there to hurt me. I opened the drawer number 8 where the mother's body was being kept. It was the same woman lying there. "What happened to you?" I whispered. I was thrown across the room and pinned to the wall. "Please don't do this. I'm trying to help you," I pled. Then I saw the same scene of the little girl play out, and this time it was much different. I saw the gun and her is silent. Her mother was standing there in front of her. "Robert, please. She's just a child. She's your daughter," she sobbed. "That isn't my daughter. Now move," the man said, and the mother pushed her aside. No, Robert." She screamed and reached for the gun. Then they struggled. She was shot in the face. "Mommy, please," the little girl cried. She was shot in the chest. The man placed a gun on the mother's hand. It was released from the wall. The power came back on, and I fell to my knees and cried and cried and cried. This wasn't a murder-suicide. It was a double homicide. I stood up and walked to the elevator, staring blankly ahead, trying to process everything that has happened. I went up to the ground floor and walked out. I didn't say goodbye to anyone. I didn't tell anyone I was leaving. I sat in my armchair at home, stared at the wall, and didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I called the police station and made an anonymous tip. Her ex-husband, Robert, was arrested on 2 counts of first-degree murder. To this day, I refuse to go back into that building, but I slept better at night knowing that I have helped bring peace to the dead. That's kind of crazy. I couldn't imagine. I would crap my pants.
I love the spooky, but yeah, I'd be crying. I'd think I was insane. I'd be like crying in a corner somewhere, praying.
Something weird's going on with my cat.
That one's pretty short.
Read that one.
I'm a bleeding heart animal lover. I have 3 cats now, all of them rescues, having found their way into my heart somehow or another. I found Prince through Facebook, a desperate plea from some friend of a friend or kind soul to adopt him. Ziggy was born underneath my porch. Once the litter was old enough, I captured them, got them fixed, and found homes for them. I couldn't help but just keep one of them. So a few weeks ago, when Frida showed up on my doorstep, I told her she had most definitely came to the right place. It was a Saturday evening, and I had just been lazing around the house, browsing Reddit, when I heard a noise like someone whimpering outside. Can you imagine that? Reading stories like this and you hear something outside.
It was like the dog coming upstairs and we were like crying.
And this person answers the door.
It's crazy.
I peered through the blinds to see what was going on, and there she was, sitting at the top of the stairs looking right at me. The most beautiful cat I've ever seen in my life. Of course, cats don't make whimpering noises like the ones I heard, but the moment we locked eyes, I forgot all about the noise. I opened the front door and approached her slowly, cooing and talking to her in a singy-song voice. "Hi, sweetheart, what are you doing here all alone?" She didn't move at all. She just tilted her head to watch me approach. I sat down next to her on the steps and started petting her. Close up, it was obvious how neglected she was. Her long gray fur was horribly matted and caked with dirt. If she did have an owner, they clearly weren't caring for her properly. Either that or she was lost. I told her to wait a moment as I went inside to grab some bowls for water and food. She devoured the canned cat food I offered her and laid down next to me when she was finished. I decided that if she was still around the following day, I would take her to the vet to get cleaned up and checked if she was microchipped. It turned out she didn't have a microchip. I did my due diligence on Facebook too, making posts and checking local groups to see if anyone had lost her. Nothing. By the time I was certain I could keep her, she had been living with me for about a week. I decided to name her Frida. Yeah. Because her piercing stare reminded me of Frida Kahlo. I'm embarrassed that I can't pronounce her last name. I did a whole project on that woman. She's famous. Frida's portrait. Looking back at the first week or so, there were a few things about her that seemed strange. She was placid and serene all the time. Even at the vet's office, she just sat there staring straight ahead. She didn't struggle when I put her in the carrier, and she was silent during the car rides there and back. It's been difficult with the other cats too. It's always hard to introduce cats to each other. But I've done it many times, and I've never seen anything like how my other cats reacted to meeting her. I expected growling, sniffing, and maybe some swatting, but Prince and Ziggy seemed afraid. Ziggy saw her from across the room and bolted into my room to hide under the bed. Prince's tail puffed up and he backed away from her slowly. Frida just sat there next to me watching them. There's been an uneasy peace between them all ever since. All three of them are always in the room with me, but Prince and Ziggy keep their distance from her. Frida stays close to me while the other two cluster together just watching. The other thing too, she's clingy but not affectionate. It's odd. She's always staring at me and always wants to be near me, sometimes locking eyes, and it makes me uneasy. It's a difficult feeling to describe, and to be honest, I've tried to brush it off because it makes me feel like I'm being overly paranoid. But it's like she can see into my soul. She follows me everywhere and always wants to sit next to me. But she doesn't cuddle. She doesn't want to rub her face on my hands, and like most cats do. Usually I just pet her as she sits, motionless, looking at me. She doesn't even purr or chirp or meow or make any other...
Oh my gosh, it's a camera, isn't it? Like, it's like it looks like a cat, but it's actually like a camera recording them, and then like it's gonna be like... That was dumb. That was pointless.
Yeah, I was thinking like a spirit or demon inside of a cat. Or make any other kind of cat sounds. Up until a few days ago, I thought she was completely silent now, though I'm not sure. The other night, I went to bed with her sitting on the pillow next to my head, as she usually does, just staring at me. The other cats were asleep together on the floor across the room. Before Frida came along, they used to sleep at the foot of my bed with me. I had a really bizarre dream that night, just a flurry of confused images, a swarm of insects, a lost child, my teeth falling out, then hurrying down a dark street with misshapen, human-like forms floating around me. Oh, not misshapen, misshaped human-like forms floating around me. I heard the sound in my dream before it woke me up, a sound like a whimper, and then a voice crying out. It was tiny and sounded like a bad recording, over and over, the same exact every time, like a broken record. Whimper, please no. Whimper, please no. It dragged me up from a deep sleep. It sat me up and looked around the room. Frida was gone. I sighed and turned over, chalking it up like to the weird dream. Then I heard it again, whimper, please no. Whimper, please no. I sat bolt upright, my sleepiness replaced with the adrenaline. Was someone messing with me? I quietly slipped out of my bed and crept into the hall to investigate. The sound was coming from the kitchen, and somehow the kitchen light was on. Could have sworn I turned it off before I went to bed. I crept closer, the churning ball of dread in my stomach getting heavier with each step.
Well, I don't like not like looking in the camera while like we're reading these like.
I had almost reached the doorway when my foot found something furry. And an ear-splitting yowl. Maybe it means howl. Maybe there was a typo. Yowl drowned out the voice. I looked down to see Prince crouched near the doorway, ears flat against his head, growling at me. I crouched down and offered him my hand. Prince, baby, what's wrong? I didn't mean to step on you, sweetheart. He nuzzled my hand, almost frantically it seemed. As I comforted him, I realized the creepy voice was gone. I stood and peered around the corner into the kitchen. That move upset Prince, and he started swatting at my legs and growling. But the kitchen was empty. Everything was how I left it, except for the light. I switched it off and headed to bed after double checking the locks on all my doors. Prince trotted along behind me, and Ziggy joined us from wherever she had been hiding. I got back into bed and they took up their old spot next to my feet, both of them keeping their eyes on the doorway and the dark hall beyond. I didn't get much sleep after that, nor did I see Frida again until the following morning. Nothing Nothing worth noting has happened since then, just more of the same, although Prince and Ziggy have seemed more on edge than before. There's something about her that creeps me out. I feel her watching me all the time. Even now, I know that if I look up to lock eyes with her, I'll get that sick, uneasy feeling that I've been getting lately. I can't explain what's happened that night or why I feel so strongly that it was somehow related to her. I feel like I'm going crazy. After all, Freya's just a cat, right? The end.
That was a horrible ending.
My throat hurts.
I think that's enough Redditing for tonight. If you guys like the video, make sure that you like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below if you want a part 2. Mary and I will do a part 2 of the video because I kind of enjoy the stories, although they are somewhat long. Some of them are really long.
I think they're nice for me to like sit down and read in my head.
Yeah,
but, like,
but reading them out loud, I
is...
stumble over them a lot because
and then you just kind of get out of whatever vibe it was putting you in.
I read a lot in my, like, I read a lot to myself, and I read really fast. Like, I go through books like really fast. But when I read out loud, I try and read like I do in my head, and I stumble over words a lot. Also, I apologize for me like chewing my gum. Multiple times I like saw myself in the camera like chewing my gum and I saw how obnoxious it was, so I was like trying not to do that. I shouldn't even have gum in while I'm recording. It was just a bad habit. But if you want a part 2, leave a comment down below. If you have any future video ideas, make sure to let me know. You can contact me through my my Instagram YouTube account, which is Cadence's YouTube, no capitals, no spaces. So I guess I will see you next time. Have a nice evening. Hope we didn't creep you out too much. If you liked those stories,
maybe you should watch this during the daytime.
And if you have any like scary stories, make sure to send them to me or to comment them down below, and I will do a review of all of those as well.
Disclaimer: watch this in the daytime.
It's a dog.